Professor, thank you very much for your time this Sunday morning. So first off, 29 reported cases. Are those all in South Africa? And what were they caused by, if not by the vaccine?
Good morning. Yes, so they were reported here in South Africa, and those cases were all due to other coincidental events. So what we found is that the majority of the people who died post-vaccination, those were coincidental events, so they had multiple comorbidities, and they were also in the older age group, so over 60, over 70 years old. There were a couple of them who died actually of COVID-19. So in other words, they were incubating COVID-19 probably before they even got vaccinated, or they got it shortly after, before they could actually mount a sufficient immune response. And
we know
also
I do apologize, yes. Professor, continue.
Yeah, so there are also 3 cases, for example, that's unclassifiable. So I actually want to mention it because we couldn't classify those cases because the information provided was insufficient. So I want to urge people when they report that they need to make sure they provide all the information necessary. Or if there was no autopsy report and there was no definite cause of death, then it's also impossible to, assign any causality to that specific case. So it's very important.
Professor, we've seen quite a lot of vaccine hesitancy, not just here in South Africa, worldwide, caused by misinformation, by targeted campaigns spreading false information purposefully about COVID-19. So it's very, very important to demystify these issues, especially fatalities around vaccines. Are there any side effects of vaccines that are serious enough that could lead to death?
The vast majority of side effects are very mild. They are not severe, and they are expected because your body is reacting to the vaccine and showing that your body is building, protection against the vaccine. Now, these very rare side effects, they are the ones that you cannot pick up in the trials. I mean, the trials, hundreds of thousands of people participated in the trials and have now been vaccinated. But those very rare ones, you can only pick them up when you roll the vaccine out to the large population. And there has been some rare events like the clotting disorder, but they are very, very, very rare, and they are manageable. The other one that I need to mention is anaphylaxis. That's also a very, very rare, allergic reaction, but it is 100% manageable. So that's why people also need to wait at the vaccination sites for 15 minutes after vaccination, because it presents straight after vaccination, within the first couple of minutes after vaccination, but 100% manageable. So that's why it's important that people need to report all adverse events, because you can only pick up rare events, and they're not all serious and they're not all severe, although they might be rare. So you can only pick them up when people are reporting.
Professor, I want to come back to the reporting procedure in just a moment. But before we get there, I want to sort of clarify this idea of very, very, very rare, because the number of varies is telling. But if you can give us, is it possible to tell us 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million? How frequently or infrequently do severe side effects or even death occur as a direct result of being vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine?
So like I said, in South Africa, absolutely no deaths are related to the vaccine. So when you talk about these very, very rare events, it means, so let me use anaphylaxis as an example. So for all vaccines, across the board, normally you look at 1 in a million doses. So with the COVID-19 vaccine, we have seen varying rates being reported. I would say on average about maybe 5 in a million. Some countries, they have websites where you can view the adverse events being reported, and then you might see higher rates of anaphylaxis. But there are also reasons for that. For example, it depends on who reported the anaphylaxis. So in some cases, people would experience just a severe allergic reaction, and then they would report it as anaphylaxis, but it's actually not anaphylaxis. The other thing is anxiety to the vaccination process itself, or fear of needles. You get those reactions as well, and sometimes they are also being categorized, or they would say that was an anaphylactic reaction, but in the meantime, the person just fainted. For those clotting events, also very rare, probably about 8 in a million. So it's really, if you weigh the risk of getting COVID-19 and die of COVID-19, and you weigh it against the risk of getting one of these rare events, it is just, it just shows you how safe these vaccines are. Also, look at the deaths.
Isabel, getting vaccinated is much, much safer than not getting vaccinated. Professor, I want to move on to that reporting now, if you don't mind, because we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that our viewers understand the process. You mentioned that you do get monitored for 15 minutes or half an hour, depending whether you have comorbidities or not. Once that monitoring process is over, after you've received your jab and you go home, if you do experience what you would consider side effects beyond what you've been told to expect, where and how do you report that?
Okay, so we actually want people to report all adverse events, because we want to make sure that those ones that we expect, that they remain at those rates, and that, within the safety ranges, can I say. That's why we want all events reported. But if you now experience these side effects in a more severe way and they last longer, or you are concerned, then you need to report. So the best thing is, when you need to seek medical help, go to a health facility, a doctor, a clinic, a hospital, a community health center, and there you report the adverse event and you seek help. If you feel that you don't need to seek medical help, you can use the Med Safety app. So it's an application available for Android and iOS phones. So it's a Med Safety app. And all information about the reporting is also available on the SAHPRA website. And then lastly, if you need assistance in reporting, you can also phone the COVID-19 hotline.
Thank you so much for that valuable information. Professor Hannelie Meyer is the chairperson of the National Immunisation Safety Expert Committee.